Decision about whether to raise property taxes in Jacksonville hanging in the balance right now. City Council met for 10 hours. They recessed at 3 o'clock this morning. They come back at 11, so a little less than 3 hours from now, or a little more than 3 hours from now. The heated debate and public outcry has left a lot of taxpayers wondering, where's it all going to end? What's the end game? Joe Krier, president of Krier Wealth Management, is here to talk about the local situation and put it all in perspective when you take a look at state and federal budgets as well. All right, let's start with what happened last night. For Jacksonville City Council, is this a darned if you do, darned if you don't?
Absolutely. You know, it's a pretty big mess, and if they don't raise the taxes, they have to cut spending. If they cut spending, it's going to mean more unemployed people walking around looking for jobs on the streets of Jacksonville. So it's kind of like we all share in keeping the budget going, or we have more people standing in the unemployment line.
Well, let's talk about the reality. Last night, there was 4 hours of heated public debate. They went well into the wee hours of the morning. They decided to reconvene at 11 this morning. Is this basically just the council saying, look, we know what we're going to do, but it's easier to do it not in the face of an angered public?
I think so, you know, and there's a lot of passion there with those people at the podium. They all had good points. You know, it's a big argument to say the value of my property's dropped from $300,000 to $150,000 or $1 million to $500,000, yet I'm paying an increased tax. The logic of it doesn't work from a taxation standpoint, but from a political standpoint, we don't have fewer officers out on the streets. We need to pay for them, and the only way to do that is to increase revenue. And
when you look at where the money comes from here at the local level, it's basically from property taxes.
Yeah, that is the largest revenue source here, as opposed to, you know, state and federal, where the state coffers are coming from sales taxes, and the United States is getting it primarily from income taxes and payroll tax, which is another form of salary taxation. They don't really have many other places to go. And, you know, unlike the federal government, if they come up short, they can't just print more of it up. They actually have to make this balance.
So let's talk about where the money's going. You alluded to the fact that when it comes to the bulk of the money that Jacksonville spends, a big chunk of it is for public safety.
Absolutely. You know, police and fire is the biggest thing there. And, you know, we have to have it on the Florida level. It's going to education and healthcare. And the U.S. is Social Security, Medicare, and defense. What's interesting about this graphic is behind each of those categories, the biggest expense within each of them is the pension fund and the healthcare costs for retirees. So we've got a situation here where we've got a lot of outflow going to people that have already served their time and are kind of in that, you know, golden age, enjoying life. Something's got to give here.
I guess the bottom line would happen to be that these promises were made when times were much better, and New Jersey's governor pretty much said, look, this is our reality today, and either you take a little bit of a cut now or you lose it all in the future.
Yeah, you know, Chris Christie, he's been a guy, he's been out there just laying it on the line, and he's been to a number of police and fire conventions, putting it out there, getting some boos at his speeches, but in the end, he says that the vast majority of people come up and say, thank you for laying it on the line, because the bottom line is they can either take some cuts now that are a small percentage of the total, or the whole thing blows up 10 or 15 years down the road.
And when you take a look at budget totals, Jacksonville's budget is going to be something like $1 billion. Realistic for a city this size of $1.25 million?
Yeah, it is, you know, and in some of the reports that have been put out by Mayor Payton's office, when you put that in perspective with inflation and the growth of the city of Jacksonville, it's actually pretty reasonable growth. Whereas if you go down this chart to the U.S., jumping up to $3.5 trillion, that was only $1 trillion a couple of years ago. So they're up 350%, so to speak, where we're just up fractionally to go along with it. It's a sign of the times, and it doesn't feel good when the economy is in a recession. None of it does, but it's got to be taken care of.
Reality smacking us square in the face. Joe Krier, Krier Wealth Management, appreciate your time.